Hello dear chess lovers and friends, I want to show you 5 best traps that you can try out in 2023 against the so-called white's greatest defense of all times. Yep, if you're a beginner or an intermediate level player, you need to know how to play against one c5. This is called the Sicilian defense. And if you watched the video that has popped up in the card above, you will remember that I recommended the move pawn to c3 on move number 2, even though you can still play knight f3. So let's just go pawn to c3, which is the Alapin variation. One of the best variations you can play against the Sicilian defense. So in my previous video, I covered the moves pawn to d5 and knight f6. But in this video, we are going to talk about what to do against pawn to d6 and knight c6 in order to win fast. After pawn to d6, the most common move here is pawn to d4, but I recommend you go bishop e2 right away. Starting with the bishop makes it look so unobvious to our opponents, so they gotta play knight f6, which is the top played move. And here I recommend you pre-move knight to f3, completely giving up this pawn. Again, if you watched this video that has popped up in the card above, you should already know the idea behind knight to f3, simply to allow white to take on e4 with his knight, and that's when we play our signature move, queen f4 check, attacking the king and at the same time eyeballing the free knight on e4. So that's the first trap to remember in this variation. Okay, after we play pawn to c3 and then black responds with d6, then bishop e2, knight f6 and knight f3. Black may realize what you want to do with this pawn. I mean, even if they don't know exactly what you're up to, you're going to see them play this move, knight c6. Stopping our queen f4 check ideal. And now with this knight c6 move, our pawn on e4 is surely under attack. So here I just recommend you go pawn to d4, and trust me, the idea is still the same. If knight takes, we still have pawn to d5, attacking the knight on c6. And after knight e5, yes, we can go queen f4 check, that's okay. But in this specific position, even better is to take on e5 with our knight, so that if pawn takes, we now go queen f4 check and we'll win with tempo. But even with this line, after knight to f3 and knight c6 covering the possible queen a4 check, instead of playing pawn to d4, what I like doing is going pawn to d3, just playing slow chess, but also setting up some nasty traps on the way. So if you don't play pawn to d4 in this position, the move that you're going to see by far is pawn to g6 for black. Well, here I just recommend you castle short, play normal chess. After bishop g7, this is now when you can start giving out your pawns for some deadly traps. You go pawn to d4, c takes d4 is the top played move, after which you take back with your pawn, and after knight takes e4, again black will fall into the same trap. So this is the hidden idea behind this variation, just the same thing that we do even in the Ponziani opening. Hey, the knight is still under attack, so knight e5, again we win the knight on e4, the free knight. So the biggest lesson we are learning from this is that we don't always have to take free things. Whenever they are present, take your time before taking. Anyways, now back to our Alapin position. Instead of pawn to d6, you may also see black playing knight c6. Once again, pawn to d4 is the main idea with this variation, but you can also try out knight to f3. The idea is to go pawn to e5 in case of knight to f6. So you're going to see black playing pawn to d6 to stop pawn to e5, after which I recommend you still go bishop e2, a very sneaky move by the way. Knight to f6 by black, now you can go pawn to d4, intending to go d5 next. So c takes d5 is by far the most played move, after which you take back with your c pawn, and after knight takes e4, I mean, what are we talking about? The same thing, pawn to d5. The difference here is that since we don't have our c3 pawn here to cover our dear king on e1, black has an in-between move, queen a5 check, which you should always keep in mind in this particular line. But once again, if knight e5, we simply go queen a4 check. By the way, knight takes e5 here doesn't work because of queen a5 check, which would end up winning our pawn on d5 after something like bishop d2 covering the check. So just be simple. Play queen a4 check, you just win black's free knight on e4 and move on with life. But just like I said, you won't always see people falling into these traps Because black doesn't have to play knight e5 here. They can go queen a5 check, an in-between move, just like I said. And here the only sensible move is to play knight c3, blocking the check. They'll play something like knight takes c3, bishop takes c3, and this is where most people seem to make an hard to see blunder. Queen takes c3. Why is this blunder? Because we have bishop d2 attacking two things at the same time. Note that the knight on c6 is already under attack, and now it is the queen which is under attack. So surely black will end up losing material here, which should be another trap to keep in mind. So that's why you won't see black taking on c3 once again with his queen. Instead of taking, now this is when they are going to play knight e5. And this is when you have to take on e5. Because after d takes e5, see, there is so much pressure on your d5 pawn. For example, if you defend your pawn with bishop d2, they will take this pawn. So here I just advise you, castle short, giving up your flank pawn to save your important center pawn. That's what we do in chess. Believe you me, even in this position, queen takes c3 is bad because of bishop b5 check. The king has to go to d8 or covered by the bishop, after which we take, king takes, queen f4 check. I mean, black could be playing with the king on the center. If king d8, you go bishop e3. I mean, look at all these threats that are coming. So this is clearly winning for white. I don't even know what black is doing here. In fact, I have a game which I played a few months ago in this same line. Let me just show you quickly. So quite alright, the game started as a Sicilian defense, Alapin variation, and I was playing against a 2400 rated chess player here. He played knight f6, I quickly played bishop e2. This was a pre-move, I knew what I wanted. My opponent already knows this trap, so he played knight c6 like I showed you. Then I played d4, he took my pawn, I took back, and after knight takes e4, I played pawn to d5. I knew he wasn't going to blunder with this move cause I had queen a4 check winning the free knight on e4, and that's why he played an in-between move, which I'm from talking about, you guys. Queen a5 check. Here I simply played knight c3, hoping that he would blunder after knight takes c3, b takes c3, and something like queen takes c3 in this position, where I was going to play bishop d2 attacking the queen once again. But my opponent, being a higher rated player, didn't fall for that. He played knight e5, the normal continuation. I took the knight, and only then did he take on c3 with his queen. That's check. I blocked with my bishop, and then he took my knight. Now it was time for me to start playing. First of all, bishop b5 here is impossible because my bishop is pinned to the king. So what I did was just to castle short so that bishop b5 can now be possible. But my opponent just took another pawn. And you can see he is already 3 pawns up. But when you put this in Stockfish, Stockfish is favoring white because of the piece activity that I have. Look, it's not just about material. Black's pieces are doing nothing at the back and his development is very slow. That's why I'm okay in this position. So after queen takes d5, I simply played rook c5 because rooks smile on open files. I just wanted to plant my rook along the 7th rank. Seeing this, my opponent played g6, preparing to fianchetto the bishop and castle short. I played rook c7 anyways, and after bishop g7, I played queen a4 check. He played king f8, because if king d8 on the previous move, I was going to play bishop a5, and after b6, rook fc1, b takes a5. I mean, this is what I planned in this variation. So my opponent played something else. He played king f8 instead of king d8. And it was here where I played a move that made my opponent to resign instantly, which is queen takes a7. Simply sacrificing my queen, and the game ended right here. The idea here was that if rook takes a7, I was simply going to mate black after rook takes c8 checkmate. And after b6, I still had this move, bishop f3, that was going to win the black's queen, possibly, unless black just wanted to lose after this continuation. So that's it for today, you guys. I hope you liked this video as well. If you did, please consider giving this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and share this video if you can. My courses are still 71% off. You can check the link for my website in the description down below, where you can purchase them at very affordable prices. That is if you want to take your chess seriously beyond tricks and traps. Alright, until next time, bye bye.